For today's video about studying abroad at graduate level, I'm joined by a colleague from the Department of Greek and Latin at University College London, Chrissie Plastow. What's your PhD on, Chrissie?
It's on the rhetoric of Athenian homicide.
Very fascinating stuff. And you recently studied abroad yourself.
Yes, yeah, I went to Yale this summer for 12 weeks.
Do you want to start maybe by saying why you decided to study abroad?
Yeah, well, for me the main reason was the supervisor. The member of staff who I went to work with at Yale is really prominent in my field, and my supervisor here at UCL thought that it would be really valuable for me to spend some time working with him.
Maybe now we move on to some of the more practical side of things.
Well, the scheme I went to Yale under was called the Yale UCL Collaborative. And at the UCL end it's all run through our graduate school here, but it was literally a case of my supervisor mentioned it to me and I think there was an email that came around stating that it was an option.
Yeah.
And then beyond that it was a case of go on the website yourself, find the application form, find the application guidelines and kind of just fill it in, there wasn't really any, there was never a meeting, there was never any formal guidance from a real person, as it were. It was all just documents online. It was just one application form and then a bursary application form as well.
You mentioned your bursary. Tell me a little bit about what it's like money-wise. So if you're going on exchange as part of your PhD, you don't have to pay any American fees, which are notoriously high.
Yeah, no, I didn't have to pay any fees at Yale. I had to be enrolled on the system, but it was all fees were waived because I was a visiting student.
Okay, sure.
All the things I had to pay for were just basically kind of transport, accommodation and subsistence, and obviously also visa costs and things like that.
Yeah.
All that I had to do myself. There was also very little guidance on that.
So I suppose these are kind of the positives and negatives of going abroad. You have to be very independent and willing to go at it by yourself, and you might not be able to have someone walk you through the processes. But on the other hand, if you're interested in studying in America, it's a much more affordable way than going and doing a whole PhD in the States.
Definitely, yeah.
I guess you had the advantage because you went in summer.
Yeah.
So you didn't miss out on any teaching opportunities or anything like that.
No, not at all. The only downside of going in summer was that in the American system, a lot of the universities kind of empty out in the summer.
Okay, sure.
A lot of the staff weren't there, and a lot of the graduate students as well. So in a way it was quite nice. All the libraries were really empty. All the books were in the libraries.
Yep.
So I had free access to all the resources and everywhere was really quiet.
You talked a little bit just then about how your supervisor helped you with accommodation.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about what it was like when you actually arrived. What support structures were in place for a visiting student, and how easy did you find it to kind of integrate within the department?
Yeah. The main thing as far as I was concerned was my supervisor. He was really great. He met me off the shuttle bus as soon as I arrived in New Haven, so I didn't feel like I was kind of arriving in a town that I didn't know by myself with no one to meet me. He met me at 8 o'clock at night and took me out for Chinese food, and we got to know each other a little bit informally then, and then he dropped me off at the place I was staying. The second day was my kind of homesick day where I had a little wander around the town and felt a little bit scared because I didn't really know where I was going. But then luckily the day after that I had the Office of International Students and Scholars at Yale. They have a kind of welcome session for all visiting students and all international students as well, and they went through all the paperwork with me, got me to sign everything I needed to sign, set up on the online system. And then they also had a presentation about resources that were available for visiting students in terms of transport, health, different kind of things, everyday kind of stuff. And I felt a bit more like I was kind of then integrated into the larger Yale community.
I don't know if it's a difference between the US and the UK system, or your institution and my institution, but I certainly think that when I joined to do a whole degree rather than become a visiting student, there was perhaps maybe a little bit less in place in terms of the practical information about things like health services, and so here it was, registering with a doctor in the UK and things like that. So I think certainly it's a bit of whereas if you're an undergraduate going overseas, I guess the Erasmus scheme is set up that it's quite identical from what I understand wherever you go, and because it's often like a two-way system, people want to ensure that their students will get the same experience as the students that are coming in. Whereas I think it's a little bit more, you know, every institution is different when you're at PhD level, and it might be a bit of luck of the draw how much support you're given. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if you're doing a PhD, you're used to independent learning and being able to find information which might not be in the obvious place. Yeah. Is there anything that you think you'd like to pass on that no one told you before you went and that you felt like you learnt the hard way, or words of wisdom?
Yeah. Well, in terms of, this was quite New Haven specific. New Haven has kind of a reputation as being a little bit rough, I guess.
Right, okay.
But on actually arriving there, I found it was nothing like what the internet said it was going to be like. Certainly not as scary as the internet liked to make it seem. And certainly no scarier than living in London.
That's interesting. I thought New Haven was... I'm going to offend anyone in Yale now, but I thought it was like a bit boring.
Well, a little bit.
Okay, maybe it's a bit like Twin Peaks. Like boring on the outside, but with the dark subterranean strata.
So I guess maybe do your research, but don't necessarily take it all at face value. Be prepared to discover things for yourself. I found the most valuable thing in terms of knowing what to do when I got there was making friends in the department. You have to be a little bit outgoing.
Alright, well I think that's probably covered a lot of bases about studying abroad at graduate level. If you've got any questions for someone who's recently studied abroad as part of their PhD, where can people get in touch with you, Chrissie?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Chrissie Plastow, and also if you want to hear more about my stay at Yale, I blogged it all at chrissie@yale.wordpress.com, so
great.
There's kind of a week-to-week update of what I did while I was there, some nice pictures of New York as well. So.
Excellent, and I'll provide the links down below for that.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thanks for watching guys, bye.